Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. We are back once again. Episode number 51 of Empire State of Baseball. This is June 26th of the year 2023. The four of us have returned. This is actually the last show of June. We are officially now in the summer. The summer season is upon us, but baseball season, not really that good. Not what we all wanted for this summer. I know at least one team is still over 500 despite having their struggles. One team is already almost on the golf course, and it's only June. But Joe, what are your thoughts as we shift from spring to summer on this fine, beautiful evening?
I don't know about beautiful. I lost power here for about an hour and was under a tornado warning over here in Somerset County. But listen, I mean, if you're into baseball and you're into the summer of baseball and you're a New York fan, might not be the summer for you right now, especially if you're a Met fan. The Yankees still have a little bit of hope in them, and they're still kind of in it. But the Mets are a couple more losses away from backing up the truck, so to speak, and things just keep getting worse. They find new ways to lose, and it's a depressing time right now.
Yeah, and the Mets actually, with topical news that we're going to get into shortly on the Empire Express, trading Eduardo Escobar for two prospects last week, really starting off that conversation of where the trade line is going to be. And it could be one of those deals where, yeah, the Mets could just be trying to get a different look with players they're calling up, or could it be a sign of things to come? Could the Mets be selling off more assets? We'll get into if the Yankees and Mets are buyers or sellers. Tom, how you doing today on this rainy Monday evening?
We're surviving out here. We're surviving. Yeah.
And you're surviving, even though
Tom,
our New York teams are not.
This is why we pay you
Tom
the big bucks, man.
I know. You should pay me more if we're being honest.
Well, I'm happy.
All right,
I'm happy Tom's surviving. I'm happy that we're all here this evening. But I am not happy for New York baseball. And I know we got a ton of New York baseball talk tonight and a lot of baseball in general. Given a quick rundown of our lineup segment here. Again, Empire Express, one of the segments we introduced relatively recently, where we're going to just give you a blitz of Mets and Yankees baseball.
Wait a second, Corey, I got to cut you off here. Rich, can you not open a bottle? What are you doing?
Mind your business, you dirty
bastard.
Come on, Corey, let's go.
You weak-handed baby. My God.
Dude, that was tough. I don't know what was up with that.
Blood vessel.
I had no issues with that cap for the last 4 weeks. I don't know what happened with that one. All right, continue, Corey. Sorry about that.
Oh, boy. No, it's all good. But listen, we're going to talk about New York Mets, New York Yankees, and the Empire Express segment. We got a returning segment here, Fantasy Hot Corner, where our good friend John Hernandez will give us a little fantasy baseball talk. We're going to dive then into the MLB All-Star Game. Who will be representing our New York teams potentially in this All-Star Game? Who across baseball do we think deserves the honors? Any dark horses? And then a fun game, as always, a player to be named later. Will wrap up the night. But Empire Express, again, latest on both New York teams, Mets, Yankees. Decent week for the Yankees, terrible week for the Mets. The Mets, I couldn't even tell you the last time the Mets had a winning week. Capped off the week, losing yesterday with a terrible loss against the Phillies. We'll get that into a minute. But Yankees overall, decent week so far. Looking at this week ahead, Mets have 7 games, 1 tonight, kicking it off with Milwaukee. They have a 4-game set with Milwaukee, 3 versus the Giants. Yankees are off this evening. Another Monday. All of Mondays have been off for the Yankees this month, but they get 3 against the Oakland A's, one of our favorite teams on this show, and then 3 against a struggling St. Louis Cardinals team. So again, Rich, looking at both teams, Mets 5-15 in their last 20. Talk about a June swoon. Yankees, not much better, 10-19 in their last 29. I mean, what is going on here in New York baseball?
Man, I don't know where we want to start here. Obviously, for the Yankees, this team is just not the same without Aaron Judge, and it's a damn shame because, as I touched on last week, you know, the Yankees have had seasons where they've lost Judge for most of the games, and they found ways to win games with what they had and with that next man up mentality. See, here's the thing too. Everybody's raving about Jake Bauers and Billy McKinney, as they should, because what they're doing a great job for these Yankees. McKinney had a solo home run on Saturday against the Texas Rangers. It was a 1-0 victory. Won them the game. The problem is next man up worked because the players that were still healthy, that were controlled by the team, that were the big stars of the team, were stars for the team, and they performed. And over this last month, we have not seen it outside of yesterday in the comeback victory they had against Texas. Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres in the field have not shown up for this team. I think that's the problem here, Tom. You have guys that are doing a job that you're calling up from AAA, doing more than what you've asked for them, but the players internally that you have signed to these contracts are doing nothing.
I mean, yeah, I agree, but the Yankees also just won their last 2 series, and they're going to Oakland to hopefully sweep the A's. I mean, listen, that we know that this team is not the same without Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is the MVP. He's proving him. Yankees are proving it without him, but they're winning games. And as a Yankee fan, I think all that we can hope for is for the time that Judge is out, for the Yankees to play 500 baseball. And that's basically what they've been doing. And
He's going
to come back. He's going to come back.
It's a torn ligament in his foot.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to come back. I don't think he's going to be out the whole year. They didn't really explain the severity of a torn ligament. I don't feel like we need to go into the differences or the fact that like a sprain and a strain are also tears. Like he's coming back. He should be back this year.
The thing is, the optics don't look good when you're 6'7", 250 plus, and you run straight into a concrete wall toe first, and you tear a ligament in that toe. I don't care how good of an athlete you are or how built you are for the game. That's an injury that's hard to come back from. And the optics didn't look good from the beginning. And the Yankees, as always, PR, they downplayed the hell out of it. So I don't know.
I said that too. I think he's coming back. I'm not saying he's coming back next week, but he's going to be. I think he'll be back. And what the Yankees need to do is they need to tread water until then. I think they can stay in the race. Rodon should be coming back, or not even just coming back, just coming, because he was never here in the first place. So it's going to add another arm to the rotation. And yeah, the DJs, the Stantons, the Rizzos, the Glaybers have been tough to watch. But I do think that they have the ability to get back closer to playing to their potential. And the Yankees should be able to. Yeah, I listen. They got the eight. They're going to Oakland. Oakland stinks. They're going to St. Louis. The Cardinals stink. So those are 2 more series you should win. Then they got the Orioles and they got the Cubs before the All-Star break. They got the Orioles at home. I'm always a fan of the Birds. But listen, I think the Yankees could, from now until then, be an above 500 or a few games above 500 of a team. And that just puts them in a good spot. Hopefully then Rodon's back, ready to go post All-Star game or even before the All-Star game. Get some other guys hitting a little bit better. And we see. And you see when we get to the deadline.
The problem is I don't think your hitters can hit better. I mean,
I don't know why you think they can't. They can
hit better, but the Yankees don't have the offensive talent to compete with the top teams in the league. Without Judge,
they just beat the Rangers, who are the second best team in the league. They beat them 2-1.
But again,
they escaped them, Tom. Let's be realistic
here. I don't know what you want. They beat them with the
comeback victory yesterday. Hold on a second, Joe. Before the comeback victory yesterday, the Yankees had a 3-1 victory out of Seattle, a 4-2 victory to Seattle, and a 1-0 victory to Texas. That's not really beating those opponents. That's escaping them.
That's beating them.
Those are
at the end of the day, guys. I'm not trying to tell you that this Yankee team is the 27 Yankees and they're the greatest thing and they're going to go on to win the World Series. I don't believe that.
Definitely not.
Do I think that they could make the playoffs and be a wild card team? Yeah, I definitely still think that's a possibility with Judge coming back at some point, and they can tread water until then.
At this
they're
point,
pitching.
You don't know if Judge is coming back. That's my point.
I don't think. I would be shocked if he doesn't come back this year.
You're not a doctor, though, and they gave no timetable for his return. So that's
the only reason he's not coming back is if they really fall out of it. If they're in it, he'll be back.
Corey, get in here.
Yeah, no, I do think he'll be back, and I just keep thinking of one show we did, and I think it was either last season or the start of this season. I think it was actually in our first season last year, where Tom, you actually brought up a point about Aaron Judge not really having what we call like a true injury. It's always like a freak injury that happens, and this is another perfect example of like a freak injury, and it's the opposite of Giancarlo Stanton, who seems to always get these weird core injuries, hamstring injuries. But another freak injury that's hurting Aaron Judge here. But at the end of the day, for the New York Yankees right now, you are still a winning ball club. You're 8 games over 500. And granted, are you where you are in the division right now? Is this where you want to be? 9.5 back in third place? No, absolutely not. But the fact to say that this team isn't going to compete, they've been without Judge now for a while. It's been, about a month now, about 3 or 4 weeks without Judge. And the team is still doing decent. A win's a win. Granted, did they escape it? Yeah, maybe they escaped it, but I wish the Mets escaped with a few more wins lately. Instead, the Mets, they're losing in crazy fashion right now. But not only are the Yankees a playoff team, they actually are in better spot this week than they were last. They're now the second wild card. Last week, they were barely the third. I think right now they have like a half-game lead or so on the Blue Jays for that second wildcard spot. So I do think Judge will come back at some point. Do we see him before the All-Star break? No, I don't think so. But he'll be back at some point, latter half of the summer. We're looking at maybe August.
August 1st is like what I'm hoping for at this point.
Exactly. And look at the record real quick. I'll pass it to Joe. Yankees right now without Aaron Judge, it's been 18 games. They're 8-10 without Judge. So it's not like they're doing dreadfully bad. I mean, 8-10, you're basically playing 500 ball without the MVP in Major League Baseball and Aaron Judge. So I think they are treading water. If he's out for an extended period of time, I do think they have to do something. But before they even make a trade, how about your own players waking up? You can't have your second best hitter, or who should be your second best hitter in Giancarlo Stanton, hitting an OPS in the 600s. I mean, that's a guy who's supposed to be your cleanup hitter or your 3-hitter, 5-hitter, depending on how they construct the lineup that given night. This is a guy who's supposed to be a 30 home run plus guy when he's on the field, and this guy is hitting an OPS in the 600s. I mean, that's killing you. You have a couple of other holes right now. Donaldson hitting terrible. Before we even worry about making a move, we have to get you guys like Giancarlo Stanton heating up here, because stop trying. You got to get this guy going. It was supposed to be Stanton and Judge in this lineup. Granted, Judge was holding up his end of the bargain until he got hurt, but Stanton is not holding up his end at all.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with the Yankees and looking forward, if Judge is missing significant time, and we know he's going to be out at least another month, maybe more, I just don't think the team is good enough to keep up a reasonable pace. I mean, they're 8-10 in the last 18. I think that's the most optimistic form. Okay, Stanton gets hot, maybe, but McKinney and Bowers are not going to hit like this. They've been DFA'd 4 or 5 times each in the last several years. These guys are not major league ball players, and you're relying on guys in DJ, in Rizzo, and in Stanton, who are all in their mid-30s and way past their prime. Let's be realistic. And not for nothing, I think we can end the argument on whether Gleyber Torres is that valuable to this team, because the answer is he's not. He's not. And when he is hidden at a decent level, he is a complete lack of awareness and baseball IQ in the field and on the base pads. I think Torres in the past week has sealed his fate. He is not going to be on this Yankee team.
Joe, I can't even defend Gleyber Torres, because you're absolutely right. The way he's played baseball over the last month, outside of what he's done with the bat, because actually out of the core players that we mentioned, he's probably one of the only players that have hit. But the defense, the bad
getting himself thrown out on the bases,
the bad base running, it's just building up for this guy. It's got to stop, because he's losing us ball games this way.
Yeah, I think the Yankees really should at this point look at benching him. Look at what the Rays, and granted, the Rays are in a much better position than the Yankees are, but the Rays just bench Wander Franco for a few games because of his attitude.
That's
their franchise. That's over 500. Yeah. They're in first place.
I'm just saying that, like, they sent a message, and that's not a move the Yankees, I feel like, make in this era, that they would do stuff like that. That's definitely a move. If going way back to it's like a Billy Martin type move. Billy Martin would have probably sent Gleyber on the 4 train a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But even like when Stein, George was still around, I feel like he would have kind of gotten involved and been, listen, this guy needs to sit down if he's gonna do stuff like this. So I think that's something like that needs to happen. I think they need that kind of like a shake to tell Glaber, like, this isn't okay. And no, he's not gonna be back next year. I think he's right because this is his last year. He's signed anyway. The Yankees have too many infielders. They have like 17 infielders on this roster. He's not gonna be back next year. He has a good bat, but the mistakes they kill him and they can't continue.
We're gonna take the next stop over to Queens here. Before we do that, though, Pars asked this question: what movies you guys think are out there if Judge isn't available until September 1st? Now, Pars, stay tuned with us for the next few weeks. We're definitely gonna do some trade deadline shows coming up, and we will talk all about that in a few weeks. That's a great question. We're gonna hold that, so stay tuned with us in a couple weeks' time. But let's go over to Queens here and talk more Mets baseball, more miserable Mets baseball. We asked a question today on Instagram: which non-executive in New York do you not trust right now? I got to pull up the recent votes, but Buck Showalter had the majority of the vote. And I also noticed one of the voters is somebody who's had Buck's back essentially this entire season. Corey Faz.
Pete Alonso voted for Buck Showalter in the poll? I can't believe it.
Yeah, but actually, I'll tell you what. If I'm looking at the New York Mets over the last week, again, I'm a Buck guy. I love Buck. But I have to give Epler a little bit of props this week. And I've been a big anti-Epler guy. But the Eduardo Escobar trade, I thought was the right move, right time for positions of need. No pitching depth whatsoever. You actually got a pretty decent prospect in Coleman Crow. And again, this is for a third baseman who is not the future of this team, who only was starting 1 or 2 games a week for this team. That's opening up the door for your top third base prospect and potentially Vientos later in the season if they do call him back up. So Epler, you had a good week. I'll give you that. But Buck, I don't know what it is, but this last week was not a good one. And I don't necessarily disagree. Yeah, Robertson's your 9th inning guy, but what's all this talk about Adam Ottavino saying he is available, Buck saying he's not available? I don't know what's going on there right now. It was not a good week for my man, Buck Showalter. So of the two, Epler and Buck, from a Mets standpoint, I had to go with Buck as the one to get the downvote this week. I do want to read one more Mets stat, and then I'll hand it over to Joe to see his take on the Epler versus Buck, or just New York.
Very excited for
with
this.
Our poll. But here's a Mets stat, all right? When scoring 6+ runs in a game, the MLB winning percentage across baseball is .820. All right. What are the Mets? They are .520, 300 points less. The Mets are only 13-12 when scoring 6+ runs. If this was the 2015 team, it would be a 120-win season for the New York Mets, the way they were playing with 6+ runs. But if the Mets right now, when scoring 6+ runs, I'm not saying exceed the average. If you were literally MLB average, play the average, 6+ runs, Mets would be 42-35. Instead, they are 7 games under 500.
Yeah, in this question, in all fairness, I don't think Buck or Epler is to blame for the mess. Obviously, the manager is going to get the heat, and every move is going to be scrutinized when you're not winning ball games. Okay, we can argue on whether or not you could have used Robertson in the 8th inning. Robertson was not going to get another 5 or 6 out save. He had done that the day before. He was not going to do that again. So especially at 39 years old, Buck was trying to protect him. As we know, Buck is extremely good at protecting his bullpen. But at the end of the day, it did cost the Mets the game. And you can question whether or not Robertson should have been in there in the 8th and then let the 9th inning fall as it may. The result of that would have been Brigham coming in the 9th. And as we saw, Brigham was not ready to pitch yesterday. So for me, I don't know what the Mets can do differently. I have said this time and time again. I've been arguing with Met fans on our ESB Twitter handle all week. Every single person is calling for Epler's head on a pike. Every single person is calling for Buck's head on a pike. And I got to say this. This is baseball. These things happen. this team is vastly underperforming, it's not due to the offense. It is due solely to the pitching.
Yep.
Firing Epler is not going to change that. Firing Buck is not going to change the fact that Verlander is pitching to an upper 4 ERA. It's not going to change the fact that Senga has one great start and one bad start. It's not going to change the fact that David Peterson and McGill have been banished to the minors several times this year. The reality of the situation is the Mets are underperforming as a team. They have tried to patch this team since Cohen has started while trying to get the farm system back up and running, back to a point where they have positional depth up and down the roster, and they haven't gotten there yet. They've tried to supplement that by spending. But to me, firing the two stable parts of your organization for the first time in how many years is not going to be the answer. We are on our 5th general manager in 4 years since Cohen bought the team. I have this question for all the people who want to fire Epler. What general manager you think is coming to New York after you fire your 5th general manager in 4 years? Who do you think is going to come for this job?
That is a fair point. And I listen, I do not like Epler, but I totally agree with Joe that it is a terrible look that you have this much overhaul in terms of just turnover at the GM position. Granted, some of it is not intended. I mean, the whole Porter situation, Jeff Passan licking his chops. Oh, what a great hire for the Mets. What a great hire. You know what, Passan? You could go rot in the pits of hell. You knew damn well what you were doing, trying to get your clickbaits and your like and promote your story. Jeff Passan, if you're watching this, go to hell. But right now, I do agree with Joe.
What Jeff Passan?
Yeah.
Passan. Yeah, he means Passan.
Jeff Passan.
I call Passan. You know why?
Jeff Passan is a saint, and I will not allow his name to be denigrated on this 2-bit
He might
podcast.
be the only person I hate more than Billy Epler. But I agree with Joe. There's too much turnover right now.
I got a question for you guys then, because the whole fire Epler and everything. Do you think if they were to do that, do you think Cohen would just tell Theo Epstein, "I'll give you how much money you want, and you can come fix this team"?
I would love
I think he
wouldn't that be in the cards? I mean, like Steve Cohen seems like the guy who wants to just throw as much money at the problem as he can. Like that's his solution for everything is just throw money at it, and you could just throw $250 million at Theo Epstein and just say, "Hey, you're in charge. You do whatever."
Listen, I think there's a price that everybody is willing to pay. Last I heard that Epstein wanted a portion of ownership, and I don't think Cohen.
With the $250 million that Cohen pays, and he could buy a portion of the A's. He can buy the A's and.
Listen, I think Corey brings up the point. Stearns is out of his contract. The Brewers no longer own his rights after this year. He's good friends with Billy Epler. He's a Queens native. Grew up a Met fan. He is going to be the guy. From what it sounds like, it's almost a done deal in the background. But at the that's for the future. And eventually, yeah, you know what? If Stearns turns him down, he might just throw the bank at Epstein, but I don't Epstein. I don't. That's not the problem right now. It's the fact that Met fans constantly want blood anytime the team is underperforming, and when you look back at this organization, where it was from when Cohen bought the team to where it is now. The Mets had fully admitted that they did not expect last year to happen and that they were going to use money as a stopgap to build the organization properly. This organization has gone through years of neglect, years of turnover, years of bad managers and bad GMs, and that does not get fixed in one season. And one of the significant things, and I'll do this quick and then I'll hand it to you guys. One of the things I was thinking about today, the difference between Cohen taking over when he did and actually taking over a year earlier would have been huge, because Zach Wheeler would have never left the Mets if Cohen had gotten here just a little bit sooner. And
True.
I think that would have had a ripple effect to where we are now. If one of Scherzer or Verlander would not be here if Wheeler was here, the Mets would have that stable top of the rotation instead of struggling to find 2 40-year-old pitchers, their consistency. I mean, I think that's had a big ripple effect on what's going on in this organization. But as far as the moves that this organization has made in the past, I can't look back at a move and say that was a terrible move at the time.
So the way you talk about a 7-game under 500 team compared to how you talk about an 8-game over 500 team is startling. But we can move on.
The Mets have more talent than the Yankees, which is the frustrating part. That's
the roster's more full.
Yeah.
And the roster's more full. I'll end with this point, and then we're going to throw it to our next bit here, actually more specifically Joe, to talk on Twitter. The thing with the Mets, and we're going to get into it, as I told Pars earlier, we're going to have some trade deadline shows coming up in the next few weeks. I'm just curious to see where the Mets are going to be, come that trade deadline. You're 15 games out. You're thinking, all right, this team's not going to buy, but are they really going to sell to a team with the top payroll in all of baseball is going to sell? Because to me, if they're a team that sells with a top payroll, misses the playoffs, it's an abject failure of a baseball season. And it might already be.
Well, I mean, it's the biggest payroll in the history of baseball. If you miss the playoffs, it's an abject failure. At that point, you might as well sell and try to salvage something for the future. If you're truly out of it at that point.
Yeah, now the season itself, right now is trending towards utter embarrassment. I mean, then we could start the debate between 07 or 2023, which is worse, 07. But honestly, right now for the Mets, I don't think it's a full rebuild. It's not a sell-off. It's a retool, not a rebuild. Dump some of these guys who are blocking some of the kids and have no long-term value with this team. Escobar was the first piece. Maybe you trade a guy like Pham, a guy like Canna, guys who are on the final year of their deals, probably not going to be with the club next year. See what you could get, even if it's player to be named later, or you eat all the money and maybe get a decent prospect like they do with Escobar. See what happens there. Not a rebuild, it's a retool if you're still struggling.
We'll talk more about it on our trade deadline episodes coming up in the next few weeks, and we will preview those trade deadline episodes on... That's your key.
We're going to preview them live on Twitter with our 2,000 plus followers and growing. The community's been fantastic, even though we have a couple of differences in the last few weeks, especially over the state of the Mets. But you can follow us at ESB Podcast. You can follow Corey at G Gory, myself at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, and Tom at T Wospil, all on Twitter. We're all active. We love live tweeting the games and sharing our miseries with our camaraderie.
Mets Twitter is hot, but not hotter than the hot corner. We're going to go to Jonathan Hernandez now with the fantasy hot corner for the week. Take it away, John.
What's going on, ESP crew? I'm back for another fantasy hot corner. Since 2 weeks ago, the Reds are still hot. So guess what? I'm going back to Cincinnati. We spoke about Ellie De La Cruz last time. This time I'm going to go on the pitching side and talk about Andrew Abbott. He's had 4 starts. He just gave up his first runs, 3 earned runs in his last start. But guess what? He still won 6 innings strong, had 10 strikeouts. It's pretty good for a guy that if you can still grab him, go out there and grab him. If you could grab anybody in the Reds right now, go pick him up. Votto just came back from the IL. He's hot. De La Cruz has not slowed down. Matt McClain is not getting talked about enough. He came up a few weeks before De La Cruz. He's been absolutely red hot. And then Spencer Steer and Jonathan India have been there all year, have been pretty much just tearing the cover off the ball. You could just keep going on and on. Jake Fraley, TJ Friedel. The team is worth looking at. If they're available in your league, go pick them up.
A lot of play for the scorching hot Cincinnati Reds. Nothing hot than the red hot Cincinnati Reds. How about the Cincinnati Reds play there, Thomas?
Yeah, they've been really good. They've been surprising. I mean, it helps that they're probably the worst division in all of sports. They are 4 games over 500, so I'm not trying to rain on any Reds parades, and they have been extremely hot recently, but they play in an embarrassing division, and they're 4 games over 500. So,
Thomas, there's still an AL Central. That is the worst division in all of professional sports.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, both Centrals are bad. Listen, both Centrals are very, very bad. But I mean, if the Twins were if you go record wise, the Twins are only a game and a half worse than the Reds, and they didn't just go on a historic streak. So, just for perspective.
Yeah.
But no, they've been incredible. I'm sure we're going to talk about some more Reds later on as we talk about our All-Star teams and a lot of deserving players from that from that team. But they've been fun to watch. Pick up as many Reds as you agree. I can see John was afraid again to come on the show and deal with any kind of criticism of his picks. But as a proud Ellie owner in one of my leagues, can't speak highly enough of Reds fantasy.
Yeah, no, Reds, gotta give him credit overall. I mean, if you would have told me the Reds were in first place in the start of summer here, I would have been dumbfounded. And the fact that the Reds seemed to get hot as the Pirates got ice cold. The Pirates were the hot name just a few weeks ago, but the Pirates have had a worse June than the Mets, one of their last 9, and they're fading back into irrelevancy.
What a surprise.
Still only 5.5 games back, so. Good.
Yeah, it's wild how streaky MLB has been, but one of the great baseball towns in America is Cincinnati. I mean, it is widely considered the first professional team was there. Opening day should be in Cincinnati every single year. Now we do stupid things like Tokyo, and everybody starts at the same time on the same day and all that.
Now
stuff.
We do that, Joe. They were going to Tokyo 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's still dumb. The opening day should be 1:00 in Cincinnati every year. That's what it should be. Period. End of story.
Don't touch the thermostat in Joe's house. He'll probably get upset about it.
Anyway, it's great to see Cincinnati kind of turning around. Votto's in the twilight of his career. It's great to see him come back and perform, even if it's only on a part-time basis for the Reds at the moment. But they have a very young, very energetic and exciting team. Not sure if it's going to last the entire time. The ownership is a question, but for now, the Reds fans should be proud. And listen, they sold out the whole weekend this past weekend, which was fantastic to see that stadium not be empty for the first time in several years.
Cincinnati is an electric factory. It's been fun watching baseball over there, but we're going to stay in the NL Central here for John's pickup of the week. All right, let's go, John. What do we got here?
I know I kind of just cheated and told you to go pick up a whole bunch of Reds players, which you should do. But I'm also going to give you guys another pickup this week. Go pick up Jordan Hicks. He's getting the save opportunities. Ryan Helsley's out. And I know the Cardinals haven't been that good, but listen, Hicks has had a lot of potential, and I think he's finally starting to see it as a closer. But we're also going to do a little bit of a second segment for the pickup. We're at the halfway point. We're at the All-Star break. So my question to you guys at ESB, who has been your fantasy pickup or your fantasy waiver wire ad that's helped you out throughout the entire year? For me, Jared Kelenick's been a good addition to my lineup, and Brian Bello of the Red Sox, man, he's been really good, especially his last couple of starts. Seems like he goes 6 innings strong every time. So who's been your player that you guys have added that's helped you out? And let me know, and can't wait to hear from you guys, and I'll see you next time.
And before I throw the question to the rest of my co-hosts, I just want to make 2 points. First, Jordan Hicks, a good pick right there. It's good to see him kind of come back here. He was a highly touted prospect when he first started up, flame-throwing from the beginning. They tried to job at him a little bit with the starting rotation, but I think he's meant to be a back-of-the-end reliever, and Hicks has looked great as of late. Second point I got to make to my fellow Puerto Rican, Brian Bello. You know the pronunciation of the double L there, Hernandez. Bayo. It's Bayo. Get it right. You know better. All right. Anyway, all kidding aside, I want to get on John's question because it was a great question. What waiver wire pick in fantasy has helped you the most this year? We'll start with Corey.
I got to go with Lane Thomas. Keep it in the NL East with the bad Nationals team. Lane Thomas, 13 home runs, hitting .295, OPS of 847. So he's doing good in stat leagues. He's doing good in points leagues. I have him in a point league personally, and he seems to be getting a pretty consistent few points game in, game out. So I'm loving the Lane Thomas pickup.
Yeah, I got Josiah Gray off the waiver wire pretty early. He's the young pitcher for the Nationals. starting to realize his potential. High strikeout guy, mid-3 ERA. It's always a little risky when you get a pitcher off a last place team. Can get hot and cold, but he's been pretty good for me all year.
I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I was a early adopter of the Christopher Morel comet that flew by us, and it is now gone. But let me tell you, for about 10 days there, that was the best player on the planet. And I appreciate it on my team. He is now off the team, but I'll never forget about you, Christopher.
He cooled down after those first few games, so I thought the curse was still in effect. So I dropped Morel, and then he started to heat up again. And guess who picked him up in the fantasy league? Mr. Jonathan Hernandez.
There it is.
So love that. My pick, Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder is going to be in contention for the AL Cy Young by year end. He is actually the top of the leaderboards in ERA. He's got a 2.40 ERA. He's a pitcher I saw kick around last season as a spot starter, but the Braves were more of a full rotation. He had a couple of quality good starts there, so I tried to keep an eye on him for one of his first starts of the season. I think I did pick him up for his first start of the season, and he's been lights out since. So Bryce Elder's been my guy. And again, Atlanta, once again, manufacturing just great pitching no matter what. So
it's going to be amazing. I don't know how he's going to win the AL Cy Young, but it'd be a really astounding feat, Richard.
Did I say AL? I'm sorry. I meant NL. I meant NL. I'm sorry, Thomas. You got the one time you got me on something. All right, fine. All right, but make sure to give John a follow. I won't mess this up because I know this is tough to catch. Jay Hertz, that's 2 Z's, 3 2s, 122 on Twitter, and then Jay Hertz 1Z 3 2s on Instagram, 1Z 3 2s, Jay Hertz 122 on Instagram. I got that, Tom?
I don't care.
I don't care. All right, YouTube, folks, make sure to give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. That's where all our archived episodes reside. That's where our new live episodes reside. So if you're tuning in on YouTube watching us right now, we thank you so much. And make sure to leave a comment. We have it in the comment stream right here, so we can talk about it without an argument. And also, we have our post-game recaps all up there on YouTube. So check out my post-game recap for yesterday's Yankees win over the Texas Rangers, where my nephew made his YouTube debut. So that was a lot of fun. So check that out. Give us a follow on YouTube, Empire State of Baseball. But it is All-Star festivity season, and since we're not going to be here next week, this is the perfect week to get into some of our predictions, or at least our picks for the MLB All-Star game for the AL and NL. And we went roster to roster here. We got our starting lineups, a starting pitcher, a relief pitcher, and a dark horse pick for each of us. So we'll start in the American League. And we'll kick things off. I'll toss it over to you, Corey. Let's take a look at your American League picks.
Yeah, so looking over at the American League here, I mean, the big one right there, Aaron Judge. I know he's hurt, so he's obviously not going to make the game, but he still deserves my vote. I'm giving Judge the vote anyway. So my immediate replacement is going to be Luis Roberts, who I highly considered taking with the pick regardless. So welcome, Roberts. You've made it to the All-Star game as an injury replacement. But I'm going to give a shout-out to Yoshida in Boston. I feel like every night I'm on Twitter, I'm refreshing, I'm seeing a big, Yoshida hit. And Yoshida right now, I think he's a really exciting player for that Boston team. He's a fun guy to watch right now. So I gave Yoshida the nod there for Boston to represent the American League in that outfield. Also want to give a shout-out to, how about Jonah Heim? Jonah Heim having a very solid year. And that was actually, we just got off a fantasy segment where we said, what's a waiver wire pickup that's helped your team? While I don't have him this year, Jonah Heim actually helped us last season. I do share a league with the Chooch himself, and Jonah Heim was an injury replacement pickup for us at the catcher spot last year and did a very fine job until we eventually got our player back. But Jonah Heim getting the starting nod for catcher for me this year. And just running through the list, I think Ohtani, probably a universal choice for us. We'll see everyone else's picks in a moment. Shane McClanahan, solid year. Clase, solid year. But one dark horse I'm going to give out. How about Austin Hayes with our favorite O's team? Austin Hayes, again, having a quietly good season. OPS 864, only has 8 home runs, but he's got a 318 batting average, and that O's team is having a good year. I think they're wild card 1 right now, and a big part of that is Austin Hayes. I think he's got a shot to make this team as a reserve. We'll see how he does, but Austin Hayes gets my dark horse pick for the AL.
Yeah, I like it, man. I actually should have prefaced this. So if you looked at the finalists for the AL and NL, a few of these players you're going to see in our lineups are not finalists. these are our picks. So regardless of what's happening on the ballots right now, there are some guys we feel that are more deserving to be up there and be on these rosters. So I just wanted to preface it with that. And yes, Corey, you did mention Shohei Ohtani as a universal pick. Ohtani and Ronald Acuna Jr. did get the most votes. So yes, by default, they are going to be on our rosters for the AL and NL. So we're going to continue around that, though. And Corey, love the team. Austin Hayes, a nice nod to him. I feel like we're going to see a couple more Orioles fill that out. So let's move it on to Joe. And then Joe, look at your team, and obviously similar infield here. The Corey Seager versus Bo Bichette debate is going to be a tough one for these coming weeks here as the votes start piling in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Corey Seager for first of all, their numbers are almost identical. I mean, they're both fantastic this year. But I'm going with Corey Seager because he's basically the MVP of Texas right now. I mean, the turnaround that he's had, him and Simeon versus last year. And you talk about a guy that's benefited from the removal of the shift the most, and it's Corey Seager. So he's been absolutely fantastic. One of the reasons why the Texas Rangers right now are in first place, and they are looking fantastic. A couple of differences here. Listen, I know Matt Chapman was the hot name. I know he's off to a huge start, but Jose Ramirez is a better third baseman this year than Matt Chapman is. I mean, it's just a fact. Ramirez has better numbers. There's no reason why Ramirez shouldn't be in the finals for the voting. That's my starting third baseman. But yeah, I don't know. Trout's had a down year. I put him in there. He is Mike Trout, and at the end of the day, people do want to see him. Luis Robert is having a fantastic year. Judge is hurt. I believe the replacement for him that I had was Adolis Garcia, who's also having a great year. Catcher, listen, Heim's been fantastic, but at the end of the day, Aldi Rushman is the Orioles MVP. He has become the best catcher or one of the best catchers in all of baseball. He should get the nod there. And then the difference is Ohtani's the same. Framer Valdez is having a fantastic year. I gave him the slight nod over McClanahan. It was really close. But Valdez has, I think he had a couple more quality starts than McClanahan, so I gave it to him. Felix Bautista leads all AL closers in ERA, I believe. Emmanuel Clase's had a good year. He hasn't had a phenomenal year. Batista's had the better year as far as the closers concerned. And my dark horse is Josh Naylor. Naylor's had a good season for Cleveland. Cleveland needs a representative. They're going to get Clase, but Naylor's had a really quietly good season, batting close to 300. He's been a really stable part of – we just got a bolt of thunder here. He's been a really stable part of that team and that lineup this year.
All right. Well, before Joe's power gets out, the Naylor pick is not. I don't like Naylor, but I like the pick. The whole carrying the baby thing, look like an idiot. All right, Tom, let's go to yours as well. I see a lot of orange, so once again representing Birdland, and there's a lot of the similar players that we already mentioned here. Your dark horse is Tyler Wells.
Yeah, I was figuring I was going to talk for 25 minutes like Joe, but yeah, we'll start with Tyler Wells as my dark horse. One of the things I like with All-Star games is to really show off and highlight the teams who are really doing well in the first half of the year overall. So I think there should be a lot of O's in there. There should be a lot of Rays. There should be a lot of Rangers from the AL. Tyler Wells has had a really good year. He's pitching to a 3.22 ERA. He's been one of the Orioles' best pitchers, sub 0.9 WHIP. So he's doing the thing out there. A lot of my guys are the same, I think, for the most part. And I would replace Judge. He's going to be there anyway, but Julio Rodriguez, hometown Mariners, let's get him starting in front of his hometown crowd.
J-Rod, a slow start, but he's certainly picked it up over the last few weeks. So I would think he's got to get out there for Seattle as well there, Tom. So I do like that replacement. My AL, again, covering a lot of the same players. Some of the only differences here, I got Wander Franco as a shortstop. And yes, he's not a finalist. And yes, he's not on Kevin Cash's nice list as of late. But Wander Franco is my guy. He's had a fantastic season overall. Definitely going to be somebody you're going to look at possibly in that MVP runner, race at the end of the season for the American League. I got Franco in there to mix things up. My Aaron Judge replacement, honestly, I'm kind of with Joe here. Even though Trout's not having a great season, Mike Trout's got to be at the All-Star game. You got to have one of the best players in baseball to do it. You got to have him in there. A lot of star power that you'd be missing, especially just from Judge gone. I can't think of a better replacement to have out there than Mike Trout. So Trout's in there. Now all right, this is where it's going to get good here. My starting pitcher is going to be Garrett Cole. And we can argue McClanahan, and we can argue Framber Valdez, who I love. We can argue even Kevin Gausman. Garrett Cole is going to be the guy. He's going to be the star player on that hill come All-Star Seattle, 93rd annual All-Star game. You got to have star power, and I think Cole's deserved it. He's got to be the starting pitcher for that team. And lastly, before Joe just goes in on me, Isaac Paredes is my my dark horse here. You're going to see a lot of Rays make this team. Paredes, 50 RBIs, tops amongst RBIs, plays multiple positions. So for at least a utility spot, if there is one, Isaac Paredes makes the team. All right, Joe, have at it.
No, let's go to Tom's first. Let's see what Tom did. Oh, did we do Tom's? Oh, I'm sorry.
We did mine.
My brain is. I got a case of money.
It was in the wake of your 45-minute rant.
Listen, I know Garrett Cole's had his moments this year. He is not one of the top 3 pitchers in the AL right now.
Yes, he is.
Are you kidding me?
As far as Valdez, McClanahan, and Gray all have better years than him. It's just.
Are you out of your mind? Not a top 3 in the American League.
Having a better year than him.
You are sick in the head. You're sick in the head.
Oh, God. If Garrett Cole were blue and orange,
had no leg to stand on already. Garrett Cole's not a top 3 in the American League.
His face tattooed on his ass.
He's not having the best year. He's just not. Those guys are better than him. Valdez has like 15 quality starts this year.
And Valdez is going to be great coming out of relief for Garrett Cole that Tuesday. So, all right, we're going to.
Why is the guy who's got more quality?
No, we're running out of time here. National League. Corey, here we go.
No, Rich, I have to stop you. Joe, what stat were you going with there?
He's got a better ERA. He's got more quality starts. I mean, come on.
I can't.
Corey, National League roster. Let's get into the NL.
Well, looking at the NL, I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously universal. He's probably going to be the MVP of the National League. He certainly is at this point of time. But want to give a few shout-outs here. Luis Arias, I mean, the fact that we have a player flirting with 400 at this point of the season is pretty astonishing. If you're hitting 400 at the end of April, good for you. You're having a phenomenal start of the season. We're at the end of June, and the guy is still flirting with 400, which is absolutely insane. So shout-out to Arias. Marlins won that trade. A couple of other shout-outs here. Corbin Carroll, phenomenal rookie. He's getting my nod. But Fernando Tatis Jr., I'm giving him the nod as well. And he missed the start of the season. But you look at his numbers. Juan Soto, a teammate of his out there in San Diego, all right? Compare Soto and Tatis right now. So Soto has played 20 more games, all right? Tatis only played 58 to date. Soto played 78. And look at their numbers. Soto's OPS is slightly better. Oh, whoop-de-doo, 20 points. Tatis, in 20 less games, has 4 less hits, 1 more home run, 5 less RBIs, more than double stolen bases. Comparing the two, I see Soto is getting the nod in a lot of people's ballots, but Tatis, in such a shorter window, is putting up better pace numbers than Soto, even though he missed the first month of the season, even though I do not like Tatis in the sense that he is a cheater. I think he got paid too quickly. The Padres went all in on someone who did absolutely nothing. Granted, he had a good year, the year that he cheated. But I'm going to give that nod to Tatis. Again, and this is the Trout argument from earlier. One of the greatest players, granted, cheater, but he's a fun player to watch play, and I would love to watch him in the All-Star game. I'm giving the edge to Tatis here as my last outfielder. And I do want to call out my dark horse here, Lane Thomas. I mentioned him before in the fantasy segment, having a quietly good year for the Nationals, and I could definitely see him represent the Nationals in this year's All-Star game. He's not going to be a starter, nor do I think he should be with that outfield. But Lane Thomas, I think, could certainly be a reserve player on this team. Shout out to you, Lane.
Does anybody remember, quick trivia question, does anybody remember the pitcher that was acquired in the deal that sent Lane Thomas from St. Louis to the Nationals? Anybody? Hall of Very Good. World Series champion. Boston Red Sox. Anybody? Never played for the Boston Red Sox. John Lester.
Oh, wow. Okay, look at that.
But a 1-for-1 deal, and it worked out so well for the Nationals because Lester would retire shortly thereafter. All right, Joe, let's take a look at your squad here for the National League. Again, another Corbin Carroll. We're going to see Corbin Carroll a lot here.
Yeah.
I want to call out
talking about for 20 minutes.
Well, I want to call out here your DH here, Jorge Soler. You actually went with a pure DH in this one.
Yeah. A, Marlins need an all-star, and B, Soler's had what?
Arias. What do you mean they need an all-star?
Awesome.
They have one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Soler's had a great power year. He's got over 20 home runs. He's been fantastic. Listen, I don't think anybody's going to argue with Freeman or Rise. Arenado's my third baseman at the moment. Lindor is the shortstop. He is having a very strange year, but he does lead all the shortstops in the NL in WAR. He is a fantastic defender. Soto, somehow, even though having a down year, I still think leads or is second in the National League in OBP behind a Rise who's just racked it up. Will Smith's my catcher. Zach Gallen is my pitcher. You can argue for Marcus Stroman, no problem. Alexi Diaz has been fantastic for the Reds. And my dark horse here is Lamont Wade Jr., who is quietly having an excellent season for the San Francisco Giants.
Rich asked you about one guy, and you still have talked about every single one on the roster. Leave some players for other people to talk about.
I kept it brief.
My God. There's other people on the
podcast
right, Thomas,
that want to talk here.
Yeah, so we covered a lot of them already. The controversial one I hear is my starting shortstop is Elly De La Cruz. Wow. Francisco Lindor absolutely deserves to be an all-star, and he's had a better year. But what I want to see is and he's an exciting player too. Elly De La Cruz is the most exciting rookie in baseball. I want to see him starting out there. It's an all-star game, and I want to see him out there starting with everyone else. My outfield, I have the stacked outfield of Betts, Acuna, and Corbin Carroll. I do have Francisco Alvarez as my catcher because again, I want to see someone hit bombs in the All-Star game. I'm not here to watch framing. I want to see someone hit bombs. So give me Alvarez there. Listen, maybe Alvarez can give Pete the off game for the home run derby. Give him a little bit of a break. Mm-hmm. I do have Stroman starting. He leads the league in quality starts, which apparently is the most important stat to Joe. By the way, Garrett Cole has one less quality start than Framber this year. So that one start must have been really the big difference maker for making him like a top 3 and a top 10 pitcher. Also have Alexis Diaz and then Ketel Marte. Another team, the Diamondbacks, who have been a good, fun story this year. Again, we have Corbin Carroll starting. He's been a really good player as well. So I like to see him make it. That's one of my favorite things about the All-Star game is you get the stars, but then you get those guys who make 1 or 2 All-Star games, and it's because they had a great half of a year. Let them be honored, and we'd like to see Marte out there.
Listen, Lindor's most likely going to be the starting shortstop as he is on my roster. Yeah. But hang on, my question is, does Elly De La Cruz make the All-Star team?
No. You should.
No,
it's an exhibition game. Let's
play more than 15. You got to play more than 15 games to make an All-Star game. I mean, it's not fair to players who have played a whole season when a guy played a full month.
People want to see Elly De La Cruz.
Look, I get that, but still, I mean, we got to have
put him in the derby. Have him a starting shortstop.
Earn it.
Let's have fun.
I think he finds his way somehow, but he won't be a starter.
Oh, he won't be. I mean, Lindor should be the starter. I'm not like I know he put Cruz in there, but that's mostly because I
was eligible to vote on.
It wasn't my ballot.
My question, but there's still coaches' picks and whatnot, Joe. But you mentioned something. Is there a set rule in place that you have to play a minimum amount of games to be selected as an All-Star?
No, I'm saying from a conversational standpoint, I think there should be some kind of standard of hey, this guy's played at least 2 full months of the season to be eligible to be an all-star. You can't put a guy who's played 15 games to be an all-star. That's not right.
I sure did. I'll do it again.
It'll be an interesting conversation point because he's been the talk of the town, and we'll see what he can do over these next couple of weeks, which I would think could be more of the same what he's already doing. All right, so my roster again, kind of like it's everybody as we just mentioned, with the exception of a couple players here. Matt Olson as my DH here. Olson 24 bombs. Obviously the average ain't there, but that's not why the Atlanta Braves have him there. I see him slugging out of the DH spot for the Braves, at least cracking the team. So everybody went with Alexis Diaz. I wanted to be different. I went with Camilo Doval. I would have Diaz as a top-end reliever as well. Doval having a very underrated season for the San Francisco Giants, who are making waves as of late. They're playing good ball. I think much better ball than people imagine. And Yuri Perez, which I believe Joe would appreciate. Yuri Perez of the Marlins. He has been absolutely on fire. I mean, talk about picking up the slack where Sandy Alcantara left off and hasn't really found. Yuri Perez looks just like Alcantara 2.0.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. I think he's 6 straight starts, quality starts, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Shut down. He had pitched a 6 or 7 inning shutout. I think it was yesterday or the day before. He looks the part of a guy who's going to be a top end of the rotation going forward. So the Marlins need to be thrilled with what he's showing.
That's it. All right. And those are our all-star rosters. We'll post that up on Twitter at some point, possibly Instagram as well. So Thomas, take the floor. What's the best way to follow us on Instagram?
Instagram at Empire State of Baseball. You can follow us individually at Corey Favs, at JR Pugs, or at Rivera, and at T Wospil. We post some things before the show, but we also have our Mets Minute and our River Ave Rewinds recapping games. And then I've also been doing some live look-ins on games, and probably not this week for the Yankees because they're out in Oakland and I have a bedtime. But possibly, over the weekend we'll see. We get some games that end before 11 o'clock and jumping in and hope some people come in and join. Rich joined the one time and we were both doing it. A lot of fun, a good way to watch as a community. And so check us out at Empire State of Baseball on Instagram.
And Tom, you don't want to do a 2 in the morning ESP live on the Yankees Oakland A's game this week? Come on, man.
I absolutely don't.
Let's go. Come on.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Also,
I don't want to go to bed now.
I know, man, but you're here. So New York Strike Exchange also on Instagram. We reveal it on Fridays. It is our weekly rankings on the top 5 and the bottom 5 players in New York, covering the Yankees and Mets exclusively. So make sure to tune in on Friday on Instagram for our next reveal. All righty, let's get to games, my favorite part of the night. And it's a player to be named later today. Tom and Joe have it today. Very close on the standings as well. As you see at the bottom of the ticker, I'm just leading Tom by 1. Who leads Joe by 1, who leads Corey by 2. So Corey, a chance for you to come back in here, and we'll take it away. Take it away, Joe. Let's start with the Mets here.
Yes. So this player patrolled the outfield for 3 seasons with the New York Mets. This player stole a career high 66 bases with the Mets, and this player has 2 family members that would play. Each one would play for the Yankees and one would play for the Mets almost 10 years after his retirement. Who is he?
Almost 10 years after retirement.
Bags is a lot of bases to run into. I mean, we're talking Ricky Henderson, like
in a similar. He actually might
not Roberto Alomar. Not Roberto Alomar.
No, good guess. He did play with Roberto Alomar. He did play with Ricky Henderson, I believe.
More hints. Thank you, Joe.
I was outfielder, so Roberto Alomar didn't make sense. Outfielder.
3
I
feel like I guessed this person before. I'm gonna say Timo Perez.
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of like older Mets from older seasons.
Yeah, actually,
if he played with Ricky. Granted, Ricky played for I think like Ricky paid for half a century. So
Yeah.
guys who play with Ricky probably play with Babe Ruth. So
yeah. Is older.
It seems like this. Yeah.
This is tough.
I see two family members that I keep thinking of the Molinas, but obviously for many reasons that doesn't make sense. Jose Molina.
Family members does not mean shared surname necessarily.
That's also true. That's also true.
I'm gonna do that too.
Just trying to think.
Pedro Guerrero.
No.
Damn it. I don't even know if he played with the Mets.
Roger Cedeno?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Cedeno.
I was trying to think of those like at first I was trying to think of like 80 era, and then I was like, all right, let me think of the Subway Series era, early 2000s. I was thinking Beltron too, but I'm like, no, it's not Beltron. He doesn't have any relatives.
Roger Cedeno.
Ronnie Cedeno is his brother, his younger brother. And
he did play with the Yanks for a little bit.
Of Yangervis Solarte, who is an ex-Yankee great.
Also played for the Yankees.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay. So Timo Perez, I was thinking too, Rich, until you said it. I was like, oh, damn, it's not Perez. Because I'm just trying to think of who are the fast players. Ricky Henderson, Timo Perez. Just trying to think of those fast players.
66 bags. That's insane. I didn't even know he was capable of that. But all right.
He's
great.
Like
much needed point for
bags
Corey.
in 3 seasons.
All right. Well, let's flip to the Yanks side. Tom, what do you got for us?
All right. So I got a player who played 1 season with the Yankees during the 2010s decade. This player is a 2-time All-Star. His first selection was 20 years ago.
Ooh.
And once in his career, he led the league in strikeouts.
First selection 20 years ago. All right, so he played with the Yankees in the second half of his career.
All-Star.
This is gonna be a stupid one, but I'll go for it. Sidney Ponson.
No, Oriole great Sidney Ponson. Australia's great, but not the answer here.
I have 2 guesses. Thinking of the 2010s, thinking of players who played when I was in middle school. 2 guesses.
Come on, Corey, you need the point.
Fan favorite of mine, Bartolo Colon is one.
I wish. Not Bartolo, though.
And if not Bartolo,
probably made more than 2 All-Star games.
Yeah. And my second guess was another brief New York Met, Freddie Garcia.
Not Freddie Garcia, although he probably did make 2. Freddie Garcia.
Those are 2 great guesses.
Freddie Garcia is a really good guess. It's not him, but I'm going to look up how many All-Star games he made.
He probably made a couple here and there. Yeah, he's got to make one. He's got to make one.
Yeah, he had to. He 2-time All-Star. Look at you. It could have been him. Not. He won the ERA title 1 year, so my guy led the league in strikeouts once. Freddie Garcia led the league in ERA once.
Okay.
Not no, because you said 2010s. I was gonna say Javier Vasquez, but he did pitch in the 2000s.
Yeah,
Javier Vasquez.
A little earlier.
I think he pitched longer with the Yankees too.
2010s.
Yeah, that's right.
2-time All-Star. First selection 20 years ago.
Did Jamie Moyer ever play for the Yankees?
No.
He's played like everywhere else, though.
Yeah. Another guy probably made 2 All-Star games, maybe more.
1 season with the Yankees in the 20.
1-time All-Star Jamie Moyer.
This is a tough one.
Jamie Moyer almost a 50 career WAR. Pitch for
Kerry Wood.
It was Kerry Wood. I really wanted to sneak one by you guys.
I was thinking of starters,
you know what I mean?
And he was a starter.
That was the thing. I was thinking starters too much. But I was like, you know what? It could be somebody at the back end of his career that's in the bullpen, and Kerry Wood was the guy. Kerry Wood. And not only did he lead the league in strikeouts once, but he also has, he's tied for the record of strikeouts in a single game with 20.
Yeah, and he has the highest I forget what the stat is, the game metric or game score. It's like a way of grading pitchers. It's the greatest game ever pitched. The most dominant game ever pitched. Yeah, Kerry Wood. I was really hoping to throw Like we've been throwing so many obscure guys, and like I was gonna try to sneak a fastball by you guys, and
actually, fun fact with Kerry Wood, and actually this is how I remember Cedeno and Perez. Also, I was playing Baseball Mogul recently. Started 2001 Mets franchise, and I brought in Kerry Wood. That's my ace.
He also, I know a few of us have been playing Immaculate Grid on this is like, and he was one of the answers last week. It was a guy, I think he's won over 100 games and also saved 100 games or something like that was one of the options, and Kerry Wood is who I went with. That's why I thought of him.
What a hell of a way to wake up in the morning now, playing Immaculate Grid. Go back to those Wordle when Wordle was the craze.
So annoyed. Clayton Kershaw 90 strikeouts short from a Immaculate Grid for me today.
Yeah, that screwed me today. Anyway,
yeah, I had Whitey Ford, and that one hurt me.
It's incredible
Randy Johnson.
How close we get. Like Messina. I think there was one that Messina was the popular, and it was what was his deal? I think it was like 20-win season, or even it was something crazy. I did not expect Messina to be in that leaderboard.
He won 20 games. He won 20 games his last season.
Yeah, it was something along those lines. I was like, I did not know he had that. But all righty, Corey, we're gonna wrap this thing up. But let's talk on Twitch first.
Twitch is our initial app for streaming. Obviously, now we're on YouTube and Twitter as well. But for those of you following on Twitch, we love it. The chat is awesome. Thank you again for tuning in. Download Twitch, subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. You will get a notification every time we go live. The link is in our link tree on both Instagram and Twitter, so go ahead and check it out. One general announcement. I know Rich mentioned it a little earlier in the show. We are off next week to celebrate the birth of this great country, the July 4th week, and we will resume once again Monday, July 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But for now, we're going to end this week here and do a little bit of a round table of thank yous. Joe, hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you for everybody coming out this Monday. It's been rough. I have no thank yous for the Mets, especially today. They are down 2-1 because Drew Smith gave up a 2-run homer to the 9-hole hitter Weimer in the Brewers. So we're headed for another Mets Mets L here today. So,
oh boy,
Tom.
I would like to thank Ellie De La Cruz for making his first All-Star game and congratulate him for a well-earned All-Star game selection reserve, but for him hitting a home run in the All-Star game this year.
I want to thank Joe for getting his power back. I want to thank Tom for not farting on the podcast. I want to thank Corey for being a great host today. You guys are awesome.
There's no proof that happened.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Definitive proof.
Number 49.
Don't know if it wasn't Corey.
A moment.
I heard Corey had Thai food for dinner that night, so it could have been him.
Oh, the lovely Thai food. But yeah, I just want to thank Billy Epler, and that's something you don't hear from me very often, but thank you, Epler, for doing a trade that helps our future. I hope to see more of it this year. But again, that is all for us tonight. Join us on July 10th for episode number 52. Enjoy July 4th week. And until then, take care.